there ever was.
I think he had I think the fear of it was very important. But to claim the main reason to go into Iraq was nuclear weapons, I think, was a really big mistake. Generally,
the Iraq War that
it was a generally mistake.
Biggest protest in, I think it was.
The biggest protest since I think it was since the mid 19th century. The
even longer, over a century.
Yeah, of course.
So, Robert Frost, we're joined by our usual political correspondent, but today he's playing a more minor role due to an illness. We won't go into that. But let's go into the Iraq War, though. What do you think? What do you think about this?
About the protest as well itself. I think Tony Blair, not in his main Iraq speech in the House of Commons, he noted that if there was 1,000 people protesting outside the House of Commons, Saddam would have killed more. If 1 million people were protesting outside, Saddam had still killed more.
Yeah.
Britain went in to find these WMDs and as well end Saddam's regime. Mm-hmm. America, on the other hand, went in definitely with the full intention of a regime change. Mm-hmm. The war was definitely the right decision to make. I can't believe the likes of Ed Miliband have shied away from the Iraq War, especially in his winning speech when he won the victory speech when he won the Labour Party leadership. He noted about the Iraq War and that it was wrong.
Yeah.
And I remember David Miliband, his brother, who lost, said everyone was clapping to it, loving it, lapping it away. But Harriet Harman was clapping, and all these elite Labour Party were clapping. And he said, and David Miliband turned to him and said, "Why are you clapping? You voted for the Iraq War and you supported the Iraq War."
Because surely the thing is, an idea, this was Labour's probably most memorable action they took in government, perhaps in their history, to go to war. Now, I wonder whether in 50 years' time we might think differently about the Iraq War, and Ed Miliband might regret coming out and saying, or at least not committing.
I think what we need to remember is that America were going to go in whether we join them or not. And it's
but America went into the Vietnam War and we didn't join them.
Well, exactly, but you look how the Vietnam War turned out. Imagine if America had gone into Iraq on their own. You would have all the countries around Iraq piling in, all to fight America. I think the UK went in as a mediator. We went in as the bridge between the two sides because we have perhaps more allies than America in that sense.
Britain played a more major role, given that the Vietnam War had been so unsuccessful.
Oh, exactly.
Britain could have played a more a role of negotiation with America to make sure the war was quick, which it was. It took 3 months, and afterwards it had been done properly.
I don't think we can. I don't think we can differentiate. Actually, I don't like it when people say that the Iraq War was 3 months long.
No,
when actually look at the full length of the campaign. I know the original mission was only 3 months long, but look at the full length of the campaign. Look at all the lives lost over that entire campaign. I'm not saying that I all out disagree with the UK's actions in the Iraq War. I think that we had to go in as the mediator to prevent all the forces ganging up on America and us having a ridiculous world war. I felt we did perhaps responsible in this situation is the wrong word to use, but I think we chose the lesser of two evils. We could have stepped out and let absolute chaos ensue, or we could have helped perhaps manage that chaos in a controlled manner.
Haven't we instead created another problem by invading Iraq?
We've created a multitude of problems, but there would have been
Iraq kept Iran in check. Now Iran.
No, I definitely disagree with that point. I know you bring that up quite often, but I wouldn't call it in check. When there was the Iraq and Iranian war, Saddam mercilessly killed with gas thousands of Iranian conscripts. It was not keeping each other in check.
Didn't
it was
Stalin
trench
kill many
warfare
in Russia, and yet Britain didn't involve.
Yeah, but nowadays it's different. When you have the opportunity for regime change, we should take it. We've, so many things have been fixed. Especially we've been talking about
cherry
feminism.
Pick where an opportunity is realistic.
Well, like Iraq, we had the opportunity of Iraq.
Stalin in Russia, but yet Saddam Hussein's an easier target.
No, we had the opportunity, the political opportunity. The country surrounding Iraq
did
not support the Iraqi regime. We had the opportunity to go in there. It's not like when people say Zimbabwe as well. We don't have the political opportunity to go into Zimbabwe because the nations surrounding it do not support any regime change in Zimbabwe.
Paul, you do forget with regard to Stalin in Russia, we did actually, very early on, 1919, we actually had the possibility of going into Russia and actually deposing communism full frontal. That was the White Russians, so many armies, the Americans, British, Czech, and even Russian generals went in and did that. With regard to the point about Iraq keeping Iran in check, again, I don't really see that as much. I mean, I do agree that Saddam's methods were incredibly bad. He massacred an entire. Well, he gassed using mustard gas a Kurdish village in the northern part of that province, and that ethnicity has been ruthlessly taken down by Saddam's regime, as well as being outcasted in Turkey as well, which I think is incredibly poor, and I think there should be mediation towards that. But by and by, in terms of Ed's point about the length of Iraq, I think, again, I definitely agree with that. I think that people really don't understand. Iraqi freedom, which is the original invasion of Iraq, which is dubbed by the Americans, that was 3 months. Optelic, which was the British occupation of Iraq, and then that went on to 2009, that was the significant bit.
Why is Britain going around emancipating everyone? What I'm trying to say here is that shouldn't, I think, the conventional wisdom, or at least it was until I suppose after the war, was to set an example. A liberal state sets an example, it does not enforce it, and it's rather a paradox to enforce democracy into a country. You let a democracy grow organically its own democracies to be self-sufficient.
But I think that's what we are seeing now. I mean, people, the people who are against the war, they're too hasty. They believe that Iraq just overnight, going there and just changing it to democracy is just going to happen overnight. It's going to happen.
Yeah. But people believe that, and it's not practical.
And it hinders Britain's own position.
No, but
wars are very expensive.
It's the idea of, of course, it is incredibly expensive. Granted, but
it's not worth.
It's not worth it. We are getting rid of rogue states within the country now. Whether or not it's politically correct or not is a different means. However, the fact we're getting rid of rogue states such as Saddam's regime is inherently helping the world to become a more stable place. Whether or not he had WMDs there or not, I think the case is that the more it's whether or not it's practical or not. I mean, whether it was morally correct or whether it's sanctioned or enforced by the United Nations, I think is a significant point. But getting rid of rogue states is probably going to assist our country so far, because what we can do after that is we can limit the amount of the ownership of nuclear weapons to the United Nations, which is what I'd love to see, because that is one of the most significant things that threatens everyone. It's what keeps us really very scared, and it's what keeps armies going at the same rate that they're doing. Is military spending is so high that because of the fear of rogue states who have nuclear weapons.
There have been military cuts recently.
Yeah.
And you disagree strongly.
No, actually. Surprisingly not. I do not disagree. The reason why I don't is I disagree with some aspects of it. There needs to be cuts. There's been cuts ever since World War II in terms of British
the MOD,
military.
that'd be easier, wouldn't it?
If you want to be very provocative about it.
No, I'm not going to be provocative, but there was a startling statistic, and I wish I could remember the statistic. But there was an army exactly the same size as Britain and effectiveness, yet the British Army had about 20 times or even more. It was ridiculously more civil servants in the background. Mm-hmm. Complicating things.
Yeah, of course. You've got to cut out
it's equipment that matters, isn't it?
It is.
Not pen pushers.
But when they mention austerity measures, they go, right, okay, we're going to cut these regiments. We're going to cut, the 2nd Battalion Royal Regiment Fusiliers. We're going to cut the Green Howards, the 2nd Battalion Yorkshire Regiment. They're going to cut all of these infantry battalions within the regiments, and yet the most important part of our army currently in Afghanistan is the infantry, and yet they go and spend huge amounts of money on equipment changes. Now, I'm not going to say that's not helped Afghanistan. It has, most certainly. But it just seems a bit too difficult where you go, okay, we're going to cut these battalions and then we're going to put loads of money into equipment and then keep it after after Afghanistan. It just seems very like they're in two minds about it.
Yes. Unclear. And Rob Frost?
Can I just do a closing piece on Iraq? I mean, because we both, all three of us here, either supporting the Iraq War or in some way supporting the Iraq War.
I'm playing devil's advocate.
We'd like to see, next week, if someone out there would come on to the show who's against the war, strong against. Mm-hmm. And
to note, there are so many against the war.
Lots more than there are supporting it now, definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Using an example that Tony Blair used in his Iraq speech in the House of Commons, he used the example of a man who was killed by Saddam because he spoke out against Saddam Hussein. He was tied up in a square in Baghdad, his tongue cut out, and left to bleed to death. Now, if anyone out there thinks that we shouldn't have gone in there to bring down this evil regime, which does this. We now have women MPs. Girls can go to school. I believe, it will be a slow, painful process. It's unfortunate, but Iraq will be better off.
Also, the British generally, as a force, in comparison to the Americans, had a better understanding of the type of conflict Iraq became, because the Americans had not had an insurgency conflict between two different groups in the same society. They had Vietnam, but that was against a small minority of people in Saigon. It was a different campaign. Whereas we were in Northern Ireland since 1965. We had the same kind of premise. It was two groups who were fighting over control. One happened to be unionist, one happened to be a union with Ireland.
And that's a really good point. It's a really, really good point.
And that we were, in terms of our position, I think we were much more in tune with it. And having seen a lot of documentaries, a lot of individuals who went into Afghanistan later said that all they were doing in terms of tactics were similar to what they do in Northern Ireland, because it worked reasonably well.
Northern Ireland, a good breeding ground for Iraq. All right, thank you very much, Robert Frost, Callum Thomas, and Edward Mead. Hello.
Oh, hi. Is that URF?
That is URF. Hello.
Hi, my name's Lindsay Thomas.
Hi, Lindsay Thomas. Welcome to URF, Paul's Politics. What would you like to talk about?
Well, I was just going to congratulate you on the bit of the show I was listening to about politics.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Lindsay. It's very grateful for your comments.
I set up URF.
So the founder of URF, and it's a momentous occasion because this will be one of the last ever shows from Norwich House where this was where this show was.
Yeah, we built the studios. Yeah, it was part of my pledge when I got elected Secretary of the Union, was to set up a radio station, and that's what we did. And why it's such an achievement, your programme? Because when it started, it was run by techies who just wanted to play about with radio.
Yeah.
Then it was taken over by programmers, and it seems to have migrated to the shows.
Hello?
So,
yeah.
So congratulations, and to be able to carry on a political discussion is brilliant.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's an absolute pleasure to speak to you as the founder. These studios are so quirky, and it's and the shows in the schedule are so diverse, and what you've created has such a legacy, and we must thank you. We must thank you for that.
Brilliant. Anyway, you're doing great.
Thanks very much, and your son was very good on the show.
I think you did okay.
Yes.
See, I've contributed more than just building the studio.
Yes, of course. Well, exactly. Your son will succeed you and become the president of the student union. Hopefully, that's his plan. And
not necessarily.
We will support him all the way. Thanks very much, and thanks for joining us on the show.
Then, cheers.
All right, bye.
We've actually got a text. Would you mind if I read out the text? Oh, we're back on. I've just got a message to say we're back on.
We're back on.
Mrs. Mead says we're back on.
I think Mrs. Mead
deserves a round of applause.
She has
for letting us know.
She has a few problems with her ears. No, I'm joking, Mrs. Mead. You don't have any problems with your ears.
We got a text through from Mika McKay on the Michael Gove issue, who said Michael Gove, in one of his most recent articles, said, "These reforms have the support of a growing number of great heads and outstanding teachers who want children to succeed. I then noticed he did not give examples of these outstanding teachers and heads, or in fact quote any of them. Perhaps these are characters of Mr. Gove's imagination." I'd completely agree with Mika. I'd say of course I would.
Who is Mika? Is that your alter ego? Is that your imaginary friend in the bar, Ed?
Well, I've got a lot of them, Paul. But
joking, it's a popular view,
it's a very important point. I think Michael Gove he completely opposes any kind of consultation. He doesn't agree with asking those who will eventually implement his policies. I think if Michael Gove, months and months ago, years in fact, had asked teachers, "Do you support my new EBAC qualification?" they could have helped him reform and create a really strong qualification.
I mean, education is one of those areas where
it's one of the most important sectors of our economy by far.
Ideas.
Exactly.
The problem is as well is that Michael Gove, there were rumours, or not rumours, there was a paper leaked about Gove's plans to act completely privatised.
Well, I think the schools who are resisting academy status, I think they need to be congratulated. I know my local school in Dorset is